Getting lost and getting found. It reminds me of the hymn Amazing Grace. You know the line that says, I once was lost, but now am found, was blind, but now I see. I've heard that hymn was penned by a man who went through a conversion process. In Between the Lines, which is a companion book to the hymnal that this congregation uses, it records that the author of that hymn, John Newton, was a slave trader in the 1700s. And at some point he converted to Christianity and concluded, something that not all Christians did, of course, unfortunately, that slavery was wrong. He became ordained as a minister and became an outspoken opponent of slavery and penned that hymn. I once was lost, but now am found. Getting lost and getting found, hiding, fearing being found, seeking, wanting desperately to find that company that can envelop us and empower us and embolden us. That company that can know us and help us to know. That can call us and recall us to our best selves. Getting lost, getting found, losing our way, and then finding it again. Losing our purpose, and then finding it again. Losing our people, and then finding them again. Perhaps even losing ourselves, our sense of who we are, and then finding that again too, though different, changed. Another tale of someone getting found, though not usually presented this way, I think, comes in the Christian Gospels. It's recorded in Matthew and Mark and Luke, but I like the version in Matthew best, and I'd like to share it with you. It takes place just after Jesus is recorded as telling his disciples that he will die and be resurrected. And in this story, we are told that Jesus took Peter and the two brothers, James and John, and led them up to a high mountain to be alone. As the men watched, Jesus' appearance was transformed, so that his face shone like the sun, and his clothes became as white as light. Suddenly Moses and Elijah appeared and began talking with Jesus, and Peter blurted out, "Lord, it's wonderful for us to be here. If you want, I'll make 3 shelters as memorials, one for you, one for Moses, one for Elijah." But even as he spoke, a bright cloud came over them, and a voice from the cloud said, "This is my dearly loved Son, who brings me great joy. Listen to him." The disciples were terrified and fell face down on the ground. And then Jesus came over and touched them. "Get up," he said. "Don't be afraid." And when they looked, they saw only Jesus. This story, among other things, is, I think, another instance of someone being found. It's part of the core of how I do ministry, with the understanding and the expectation that each one of us is just waiting to be seen in our brilliance and in our glory, and that happens so infrequently, and that when it does, it's astonishing and frightening. And we don't know how to respond when we see that happen. Our temptation is to fall down and worship, or to run around like Peter was going to do and say, "Oh, I'll make something, I'll do something." But no, it's enough to be present in the glory and wonder of each other when we are able to be fully human, fully who we are. This moment in the narrative of the ministry of Jesus is called the Transfiguration. I think of it as more of a revelation of the true nature of him and the true nature of each of us that is possible. And it can happen to each of us. and probably already has to many of us in some circumstances. When we or those around us are suddenly able to see who we are in light of those who have come before us and in light of our current surroundings, our mission becomes clear, our meaning becomes clear, our purpose for living is clear. We know what we're about. And we're among folks who see it, who witness it. And if we are fortunate enough to witness, to be one of those witnesses, we are awed and humble, perhaps, as I said, tempted to worship or build an altar. But if we linger a bit longer, if we loiter, as the sign said out front, loiterers wanted. If we loiter, if we spend enough time with that person or with ourselves in that moment of revelation, if we're able to work through that fear and trembling and awe, perhaps we will see or hear that person just come over and touch us and say, like Jesus did, "Hey, it's just me here. Just me." And when they looked, they saw only Jesus. Now, it could mean they saw only Jesus because they didn't see Moses and Elijah anymore, and that's probably true. But I also like to think that it's true that they saw, oh, it's Jesus. Full and glorious and right here with us, saying, don't be afraid. Getting found. Getting found is about how we are together, I think. And that's why loitering is an important part of it. Now, the traditional use of the word loitering entails an aimless quality, and that's both relevant and misleading. When the sextons put out the sign for this morning's service, one of them asked me, "Hey, what are your office hours? Because when the loiterers come by, I want to tell them where they need to go and when you'll be here." And I kind of cringed, and then I thought, well, what would it be like if this was a place that actually welcomed people who just wanted to kind of hang around? And is that much different than what we say we're doing on a Sunday morning? Come in, listen to your spirit, find the calling that you have. It's not necessarily aimless, but it's not quite as much of an active activity. When I titled today's sermon, I was thinking about hanging around not without purpose, but with a different kind of purpose.